Hello, hola, and welcome. I am back, everyone, and it is 3 a.m. right now while I'm recording this. Peak demon hours, folks. And if you're hearing this, if you're watching this video, you have probably either played or seen someone play the new Legend of Zelda game, Tears of the Kingdom. I have really enjoyed it myself. I didn't get super far, but from what I've seen and what I have played, I'm enjoying it. It seems just as fun as Breath of the Wild was. But we all know Phil, and we all know he doesn't like Nintendo games. So we also know that every single gaming opinion he has is incorrect, and basically you should never listen to any of his advice that he gives on gaming advice. Because he claims he has some kind of legacy, and that must somehow mean that his opinion is better than anyone else's, when it's obviously not the case. In fact, it's the opposite, because he's not a real gamer, and we all know this. He doesn't like games. He doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about. And honestly, even though he says we shouldn't trust game journalists and professional game reviewers, I trust them a hell of a lot more than I trust you, Phil. So we're going to get into this. I have a few videos lined up. Not all Zelda related, but the main part is, I think. So let's get started with the first one and
Hate Army General.
See what happens.
Hate Army.
First one is Hate from Hate Army. Big ups.
Hate Army.
Congrats on getting your channel back.
Shit.
Hate Army shout out.
Good vibes to the Hate Army.
Shout out for hate.
We got a couple stories to cover in regards to Zelda Tears of the Kingdom.
Oh man, right away his foot is just jiggling, man. I wonder if he's nervous or if that's just how he always is. I know he does that all the time anyway. But Jesus Christ.
So first of all, some people seem to be calling out the hypocrisy when it comes to the gaming community and the performance of games. For example, someone actually called this, I'll give credit, this was Morty on Twitter.
Morty?
Says, this is funny as hell to me.
Damn it,
Redfall
Morty!
just came out, and it's 4K, 30 frames per second, but everyone immediately when they heard it was 30 frames per second, screamed, how dare this game feel like this in 2010? Give it a 50 on Metacritic and slam it and downvote it and say it's a piece of dog shit.
Did he say 2010? Sorry, I'm already fucking...
Per second, screamed, how dare this game feel like this in 2010? Give it a 50 on Metacritic and slam
2010? What is he reading? Is he reading some ancient ass thing? Like, Phil is 2023 over here, my dude. It is not 2010. What are you talking about?
and downvote it and say it's a piece of dog shit that it would come out this way.
Did I miss the bubbles? No, you didn't miss the bubbles, dumbass.
It's only 720p on the Switch. It can barely hold 30 frames per second. And all the fanboys, oh my god, it's the best game ever. We love first-party Zelda. We love first-party Nintendo. Shut the fuck up! No, it's absolutely, positively true. Now, I think the Redfall is actually not a very good example because Redfall also is a very bad, unfinished game, regardless of the graphics.
It came out in 2010, apparently.
Shit, I know. I watched Kat play it last week. That game was really, really bad.
Sorry, okay. Phil. I'm not really going to trust your judgment on that. I mean, I don't really know much about Redfall anyway, to be honest, because that's not really my kind of game. But I'm not going to trust your opinion on any game, so...
Yeah, this is it for me. I have to call it out again. Why is it that we allow Nintendo to always underperform, but we give them a pass? Right?
We allow. God, if we just rose up, as all the gamers in the world just rose up together and overthrew the tyrannical Nintendo and bowed down to our Xbox masters. Because that he continuously sucks off the dick of Xbox and Microsoft. But God forbid a Nintendo makes a good game. Oh, the horror. And I'm going to say this like probably 20 times in this video because he's going to bring it up that many fucking times too. Because I want to reiterate, frame rate doesn't mean shit. You can still have a 30 frames per second game that runs totally fine and looks and plays fine. You don't need it to be 60 frames per second. especially in a Zelda game. It's not needed. Now, if it's like a competitive fighting game, like Street Fighter 6, which he'll play for like a month maybe, or like some kind of first-person Call of Duty game, I could see the advantage of it being 60 frames per second, where every frame is critical for reaction time and quick thinking. But for an overworld action RPG Zelda game, it's not really needed. I'm like, but he's gonna use this excuse to he's gonna use this as an excuse for every single dumbass death that he gets in the new Zelda game coming out. Because he's going to die a lot, and he's just going to blame every single death. And, well, if it was 60 frames per second, I wouldn't die so much. I would be able to react to that, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, no, you're just bad at games, dude. And it's fine if you're bad at games, just admit you're bad at games. You could still be decent. You could still be a decent Let's Player if you're bad at games, but he's not entertaining. So, like, if you're not entertaining and you're bad at games, you have really nothing to offer, and that's Phil.
Always. I mean, everyone just complained about Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. Why does this game look laughably bad? There were
Okay, Phil, fuck off. Because there is a massive difference between Pokemon Scarlet and Violet performance-wise and Tears of the Kingdom performance-wise. Pokemon Scarlet and Violet was really bad performance-wise. It was sub 30 frames per second. You had pop-in, really bad pop-in all the time. Really bad draw distance. Like, it didn't perform well at all. Still to this day, it's not performing that great, but they did try to patch it up a bit. But Tears of the Kingdom on launch, it's playing just fine. Smooth 30 frames per second. Oh god, it's not 60 frames per second, so it must be as bad as this horribly performing game. No, that's not the case, dumbass. 30 frames per second is a lot better performing than whatever the hell Scarlet and Violet was, dumbass.
memes all over the internet. Oh, by the way, best-selling Pokemon game. So you still bought it. You knew it ran like shit, but you bought it anyway. It seems like the Nintendo community.
It seems like the Nintendo community likes fun games. Doesn't that speak to the actual quality of the game? Whereas even if Pokemon Scarlet and Violet plays so terribly, it's still fun enough to entertain people and keep them playing for a longer period of time. I'm pretty sure that speaks to the actual quality of the game. Not performance quality, no. But in terms of fun, in terms of adventure, story, and compellingness to keep players invested, yes, it is speaking to that. Because performance is not everything. That's what he doesn't get. He thinks if a game plays buttery smooth 60 frames per second, 4K, 100% performance, but it has shitty gameplay, shitty story, no incentive, no multiplayer, it will still be a good game because performance and visuals is everything to him and nothing else matters. Hell, he'd even love it if it was super crazy short and not worth your money, because then he could just get rid of it, get it off the conveyor belt, and it would be totally done. He would love that. But no, Phil, there's a lot more to a game being fun than performance. That's why people like Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, because it was still a fun game. Just like Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom is still a fun game no matter what performance. And thankfully, Tears of the Kingdom still plays totally fine on the Switch. Yes, I do wish they would release a Switch Pro or the next console for the Switch already, successor to the Switch. But given the limitations that they have with the Switch hardware currently, it still plays pretty damn smooth, all things considered. So I wouldn't be bitching about it. It's actually a pretty fucking good game. And I'm not just a Nintendo fanboy. I actually like Sony consoles more than Nintendo. But still, I can see a good game for what it is. I can still enjoy a game. and it's playing perfectly fine.
Absolutely, positively love to
But he
complain.
thinks everything should be hyper, super realistic, 4K, 60 frames per second. Oh no, now we need 80 frames per second. We need it so buttery smooth that you can like slightly touch it and it'll rotate 100 degrees camera and everything. No, dumbass. It can still play fine. And to be honest, like, I can't really tell the difference between if you put like a 60 frame per second game on one screen and a 30 frame per second game on the other screen and put them right next to each other side by side, same game and everything, I wouldn't be able to tell the difference. I can't really tell the difference between a 60 frame per second and a 30 frame per second, even if they're right up next to each other. I know some people can. I just personally can't. I don't really notice that much of a difference because I'm not really focusing 100% on visual quality or the performance. I will notice performance if it's obviously poor, like really, really bad, or stuttery, or sluggish, or laggy, or whatever, then I'm going to notice something. But if it's just running normally, I'm not really going to notice that. So, yeah.
But then they spend their money anyway. So why complain? Just don't fucking complain anymore, right?
You should take your own advice. You do it too, dumbass. Oh my god, this is pissing me off so much. Because he's obviously has such a hate boner for Nintendo for such a long time. I'm going back all the way to the Wii U, honestly. Like, even back in the Wii U, he hated it. Because all he cares about is performance. And he got burned. No, he didn't even get burned, though. Because back then, Nintendo was charging people that they had to join the Nintendo Content Creators Club or whatever it was to be able to monetize a Nintendo gameplay. But he didn't even get hit by that because he was with Machinima at the time. So it's not like he got burned by that either. So honestly, I don't know why he harbors such a deep-seated hatred for it. Nintendo games. And he always gets pissy every time he, quote-unquote, has to play a Nintendo game. And he knows he has to play a Nintendo game because first-party Nintendo games, I mean. The AAA first-party Nintendo games, he knows he has to play that because he knows he's going to get money from playing that. Everyone wants to see him play the new Zelda game. Everyone wants to see him play the new Pokemon game when that comes out. He skips Splatoon, obviously, because he'll write that off. But usually, and then he'll go in a second and he'll be complaining about his views or whatever for first-party Nintendo games. But he still always makes his goals usually anyway. So he knows he has to play him. So he's just as much of a hypocrite as everyone else. He's saying it to everyone else, why you always complaining and then going around and buying the game anyway. But he does the same fucking thing. So why are you complaining so much when you're doing the same fucking thing? It's because he loves to complain. That's the joy he gets in life, is from complaining about shit that he can't control.
Oh my god, we want Switch Plus.
And then these dumbasses over here are like, oh, Nintendo fanboys. I'm like, well, what do you think fucking Phil is? He's a Xbox fanboy. Is that any better? Every person has a console or PC that they prefer. If they prefer console, if they prefer PC, if they prefer Xbox over Sony or Nintendo over Xbox, everyone's gonna have a preference. And like, oh, I hate all kinds of fanboys. And you gotta hate Phil because he's the massive Xbox fanboy this gaming generation. Last gaming generation, it was PS4, and now he's on the Xbox hype train. And then he's getting all pissy because Xbox doesn't have any good first-party IPs. Xbox, like, and he's all super upset that Redfall was really bad. And then he was complaining about how bad Halo was and how they just stopped that. Because he's an Xbox fanboy. He wishes Xbox was more of a contender and had a bigger list of first-party exclusive Xbox titles that they could do. So he's just as much a fanboy as the Nintendo fanboys he's shitting on. So it's like, pick a side, and I guess he did.
We want Switch improvement. And so they come out with the Switch OLED. That's not what I wanted. Buy it anyway. Everyone buy them all. Oh, buy them. What the fuck is your problem? All right,
Who bought them? Like, not every Nintendo Switch fanboy, fan gender neutral, whatever. Not everyone who was a fan of Nintendo went out and bought an OLED, Phil. Like, if they wanted to replace their existing Switch, if they didn't have a Switch. I mean, I don't think the sales were that crazy high for the OLED, was it? I'm pretty sure not every single fan went out and ran to get a freaking OLED model.
Nintendo, come on, crap on me some more. Open wide, everyone, open your mouths and suck on these turds.
And again with the scat fetish.
It's like, so then don't bitch. They're like the super whiny, super loud complaining.
You shouldn't bitch
but then
either.
You spend your money anyway, no matter what, right? Oh my God, the Wii U sucks. The Wii U games are terrible. I can't believe the Wii U's so bad.
Yeah, the same could be said of some of your complaints. Exactly.
To keep Nintendo afloat, and don't play the games, but buy amiibos instead.
They basically stopped doing the amiibos too. I mean, yeah, the amiibos still work with a Switch, but like I haven't seen any new amiibos come out lately for it, have you? But he is still holding on to the whole amiibo thing from the Wii U era. Because he was super bitch about that. I remember that was what Gamer J. Lee or whoever was used to be a fan of his. Ended up stopped being a fan of his because he saw how much a piece of shit he was because of that one video that he made shitting on amiibos that he then later on took down from his channel. But he's always hated amiibos. And I'm like, well, yeah, we get it. It's not for you. Whatever. Move on. But no, he always likes to bitch about stuff. And that other person was right. It's like, this can also be applied to every single argument and complaint that you've ever had, Phil. So shut the fuck up.
I wish I could make this up. But this is what happens all the time with Nintendo. Like, they always get the pass. It doesn't make any sense. I'm just confused as shit that everyone has a right to complain. Everyone does have a right to complain about graphical performance in the modern
Then what are you
era.
complaining about?
Everyone should be asking for better. If you're, especially a game like Zelda, the game's $70, $70, right? So what?
So is most. So is I think almost every current gen game nowadays. You go and buy a Xbox Series X game, it's gonna also be $70, Phil. It's not like this is the only game that's $70. If I want to go buy a brand new PS5 game, it's gonna cost $70 too.
Why in the hell are we not demanding better? What exactly is the extra $10 going to? It ain't graphical performance, right? So where is it going? Why are we paying it?
Do you have any idea how much games cost to make, dumbass? He's like always complaining, how come we don't have such amazing games every single year? Do you know how long and how expensive games are to make nowadays? Especially with dumbasses like this constantly demanding better, better, better. Everything has to be super high graphic, intense fidelity, super lifelike, realistic, 4K Uncanny Valley bullshit. And then he'll be the first to bitch if they start trying to do like AI into the games or something like that. Not, you know what I mean, not that AI, but the other AI.
I'm the exception to the rule here.
No, you're not! No, you're fucking not!
Content creator. You know, I dropped the extra money, but I'm going to be making a playthrough that's going to make tons of content for my streams, entertain you guys. You know, it's not a big deal to me. But for the average person, yeah, why are you spending 10 more bucks for what? What exactly are you getting out of it?
A good game? That's mostly what they're getting is like games that they like to play. And I'm sorry, dumbass, but like, yeah, I bought the new Zelda game. It was $70. I'm having a fun time. $10 difference isn't that much of a difference. And considering all the work and how long these games take to make and how expensive these games take to make, yeah, I'm enjoying it. And a lot lately, a lot of these newer games tend to be longer, tend to be drawn out, have more content to make up for the money. So you're getting your money's worth by playing these games, and it'll last longer. It's not just a short, quick game. And that's another thing he hates, is that these games are getting longer and longer, and that's a detriment to him, because he will drag the games out for way longer than even they're intended to be. So a 40 to 60 hour game for us, for him, is going to be like 90 to 100 hours because he draws everything out and always stops every 2 seconds to talk to his dumbass chat about something or bitch at them, either one. But yeah, so like, yeah, no, like, I don't have a problem paying a little bit extra for games that are still decent for games that are running fine, don't have any issues performance-wise. I mean, yeah, obviously some games are still going to be kind of buggy when they're on release and everything, but they eventually get patched also. That was a major complaint, or not complaint. There was a major issue with Cyberpunk 2077. And he, to this day, harbors such great resentment about Cyberpunk 2077, right? I'm getting off on a tangent, I'm sorry. But I loved Cyberpunk 2077. I played that game at launch. It was buggy. For sure, 100% buggy. I'm not going to lie and pretend that game played good. It did not. But I never experienced any game-breaking bugs for me playing it. And I still had a good time enjoying and playing it. And, yeah, so I still had a good time in playing it. And yes, since that time, they patched it up, so now it is running like a normal functioning game. You don't get game-breaking bugs anymore. You might still get a few graphical bugs here and there, but that's kind of common for an open-world game like that. And it's patched up, it's fixed, it plays like a normal game anymore, but in this dumbass's mind, it will always be bad because the launch was bad, and that's not the case. Just because the launch is bad, just because the launch of a game is bad, does not mean that game is always constantly going to remain that buggy for eternity. They are going to patch it out. They usually do for free. There's never going to charge you an extra DLC to patch the game. God forbid. Now that would be something to complain about. But I don't see any company doing that, thankfully. And like I said, I get so pissed off when someone reminds him that game exists, and he still rags on it to this day. Oh, that game was terrible, blah, blah. No, dumbass. It was terrible because of the bugs at launch. It runs fine now. It's still a good fucking game. It's not as good as Witcher 3, but it's still a decent game. I would rate it like an 8. But he gets all squirmy and doesn't like it because it was more had a bit of nudity in it, had like this whole sexual edge type of thing going on in the background a bit to the game, and he is a super mega prude and didn't like that, so he uses any excuse he can to stop playing it, as we saw in that one game, which I can't freaking remember the name of, with a talking fridge that talked dirty to him. Because he used every excuse in the book to stop playing that game. Oh, the fridge talked dirty to me. Oh my god, I have PTSD now. I was raped by a fridge. Like, what the fuck, man? I'm sorry, I'm going off on a tangent here, but yeah. So no, like in his mind, like if a game is like bad at launch, it will always consistently be bad for the rest of time. And he expects and demands 4K 60 frames per second on every single fucking game ever made because he's a dumbass and not a real gamer. Because to him, like, he doesn't actually enjoy any games. He really doesn't. Maybe some of those, maybe WWE Champions is probably the only game that he actually enjoys. But actual games that he has to play for the audience, for his audience or whatever, he does not like. He'd rather them look pretty so he has something to look at while he's working, and be short so he can just cash that game check it off the list, chuck it in the bin, never touch it, never play it again, so he can go on to the next game. And in the meantime, when there's no games, he'll just play an old-ass fucking game again, like Oblivion or Fallout 3 or Fallout New Vegas or Skyrim, and just keep playing those games for fucking 6 to 9 months because he's lazy. He doesn't want to actually look up any kind of awesome indie title that went unplayed by him, or one of the many different games that he skipped and didn't bother going back to that everyone at the time was begging for him to go back to. Or it'll be like a Metroid Dread situation when Metroid Dread comes out. It's like, oh no, I gotta finish these other games first. And like a month or two later, he goes back to Metroid Dread. And then he's like, why is no one watching and donating when I'm playing this game? I thought you guys wanted to see me play the game. Yeah, they wanted to see you play the game when it first came out. They moved on. They saw someone else play the playthrough. They either played it themselves or watched another content creator play it, and not you. So they move on. But you took forever to play it, and then you bitch that no one comes to watch you. Because that's, like, that was your whole MO in earlier YouTube. Don't you remember? You had to be the first one to play these games. You went to the midnight releases and got the games brand new because those were the day one views. And that's basically why anyone really watches you anymore, except for a few handful of dents who don't realize any better how much of a piece of shit you are. And OIC, who has a mad crush involved with you and is trying to pretend to be all these other people that is donating money to you, but that's a whole nother thing.
Right? And again, why on earth does Nintendo get to pass? Criticize them and then say, no, we're actually going to change our spending methods instead of every time. It's hilarious. Zelda Tears of the Kingdom Collector's Edition, Zelda Tears of the Kingdom Controller, Zelda Tears of the Kingdom Bag to carry your Switch in, and it's all selling like hotcakes.
I like Hitler. I also love Nazis. I see good things about Hitler.
It's all just selling crazy. Tons of money for Nintendo. But then you shit on the game and say it looks like shit. Then don't fucking buy the stuff. It's one or the other. You can't have it both ways. You can't complain, but then support. Then don't fucking support. Stop complaining, or don't support. You know what I mean? You want to talk about hypocrisy? Excuse me. Anyway, the other news story about Zelda. Get this.
Does he just not understand how huge of a franchise Zelda is? Because, like, people in my generation, we grew up with Zelda. That was, like, our comfort game, right? Like, ever since we were little kids, we were playing the first Zelda on NES. And then Zelda 2, and we all skipped Zelda 2 because it sucked. And then Link to the Past came out, and we loved Link to the Past. And then Ocarina of Time came out. And it was the best moment of our lives. And, like, Zelda games, and to a lesser extent Mario games, have always been there with us growing up for the majority of people in our generation, right? I would argue that, like, most, like, the vast percentage of people had an NES or Super Nintendo when they were kids. Maybe not when it first came out. Maybe you got it at a yard sale somewhere. It's all kind of dusty, buried in a box somewhere. You're like, oh, can I have this? I'm going to use my allowance to buy it. And you only had one or two crappy games. And most of them were third-party titles from some really bad action movie that sucked ass. But there was that one. It was Link to the Past. Or maybe it was that nice gold cart for the original Legend of Zelda. And you put it in, and it goes, do, 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 do. Like, everyone knows that melody. It's like a huge nostalgia bomb. And it's our comfort food. And, like, everyone loves Zelda. As a series. Now, you might have that one or two Zelda game that you don't like. Everyone is going to have a few of the Zelda games they just didn't like. I know a lot of people are mad at me when I say I just didn't really care much for Majora's Mask. But that was me. I just didn't like that one that much. I'm sorry. I know a lot of people do. And I'm not going to be over here saying it was a crappy game. I didn't like the mechanics. And it was weird. I'm not going to be over here dissing a game just because I don't like it. I get that a lot of people like that, and that's cool. I'm glad you liked something I didn't, you know? Because I'm glad someone likes it. So we all have games we love and don't love in this series. But I think, like, as a series overhaul, like, people... I don't want to say fanatic or fanboys, but, like, the majority of people love the series to death, right? And I know a lot of my friends are collectors of every single Zelda merchandise they can get their hands on. They love the lore. They love the characters. They love the games. They love the really cheap plastic Master Swords they get. So it's like, yeah, they're gonna love and buy every single Zelda item and product that comes out. Not every Zelda fan's gonna do that. No. But they are gonna sell. Nintendo makes these because they know Zelda has a massive fan base and people are willing to pay money for anything Zelda related. And if you were an actual gamer, you would understand this. So, not every single person is gonna be like going out and buying every single Zelda thing, no, but it's gonna sell enough that it warrants making these products. That's just kind of how it is, right? But he doesn't understand being a fan of anything because he just generally doesn't like anything. He's just an unlikable alien being who doesn't really understand what being human is. He doesn't experience joy. You know when those crime dramas where it's like, oh, this guy's a serial killer because his brain can't produce serotonin, the chemical that gives him joy, so he can't experience joy, and the only thing that gives him a sense of thrill and joy and serotonin in his brain is killing. That's Phil. Not the killing part. Minus the killing part, because he hasn't figured that out yet, and hopefully he never will figure that out. But that's kind of Phil right there. He just doesn't experience joy in his head. Nothing in his life kind of really brings him joy except for money and maybe buying things, right? So he wastes his money. He frivolously spends gacha on his WWE Champions game because that gives him joy. And that's maybe the only thing that might give him joy, honestly. It's like that little tiny spark of serotonin left in his brain. But he can't experience joy by playing games, though. He can't experience joy, I would argue, even being with his partner, which is kind of sad, but that's kind of how it seems to us, you know? But I digress.
Tears of the Kingdom has only been out for 24 hours, not even in some territories, right? It hasn't been out 24 hours for me yet. Someone already beat it in 94 minutes. Speedrun it. Broke it. Yeah, I'm not kidding. Already done. That's...
You are aware the game leaked on PC, right? Like, what was it? Like, not even a week ago, like, at least like a couple of days from when he recorded this, the game leaked, the whole game leaked online, and Nintendo was really upset and furious about that. But one of the beta testers or something leaked the ROM online, so people who had a decent enough PC to play it could play it totally online, 100% for free. Maybe he didn't know that. I'm sure he probably mentioned it in one of his dumbass podcasts, but maybe he's just forgetting that. But yeah, I imagine that there are people also that as soon as the game is released, the midnight before when that game is released, or midnight release or digital, whatever, as soon as they do that, they're not going to sleep at all that night and they're just going to play that game. People do that for Call of Duty. People do that for plenty of games. Pokemon games they do that for. Zelda, Call of Duty. Arguably, maybe some people do that for Madden too. I don't really know much about the whole sports side, but people do that for a lot of these high-profile games, Phil. Because they actually enjoy and love games, something you wouldn't understand.
Modern game development. 2023 game development. Beat the game in 90 minutes. Fucking Zelda game. You can find an article, IGN posted it, but I think multiple people have already linked to it. That people already...
Is he insinuating that the game is short? I doubt it.
Give it a look. If you really want to see that. I mean, literally, you're skipping 99% of the content of the game. I don't see the point.
That's kind of what's pretty funny that that's kind of what speedrunners kind of do, though. I mean,
probably
isn't that a normal thing for speedrunners?
Just like the first game, you probably end up right outside the final dungeon at the beginning, and it's like, oh, watch this, and you fucking run up the wall and you glitch through it, and you just go fucking fight Ganondorf. It's the end of the game.
Nope.
Right?
Not at all.
Who knows? I haven't seen it yet. I'm very curious, but that's pretty stupid. You could break the game in 90 minutes. I mean, what the frick, dude?
Elden Ring beating faster. You play that. Yep.
All right, I have one other story to talk about this morning before we get to shout-outs and all of this. Okay?
Speedrunners are so
the story
impressive, yeah.
That is true. Mega Man says, Mega Man NT says, keep in mind, people already illegally ripped and emulated the game.
Exactly, dumbass.
So, essentially, people had a week to do this. I guess that's a good point. I didn't think about that. That the game did illegally leak on the internet last week, and people have been playing it for free for ages. So maybe that's how they figured it out. You're probably right.
Dumbass.
All right. Show me the money.
All right, so that's that one. Sorry, I went a little overboard, but sometimes he pisses me off. Okay, but let us continue, and we're gonna see why DSP clearly hates Nintendo and Zelda. Again. Alright, let's go.
And every major news outlet, and I'll emphasize that, every major news outlet, meaning all the big high-profile media, not individual gamers, but the big media, are essentially...
And again, I would trust news media reviews over any dumbass opinion that you're gonna have on any game. Yeah, sorry, you're not a real gamer. There are other actual real gamers out there who actually do have a love for games and a love for Nintendo and other consoles and everything like that, and actually enjoy games. But you're not one of them. So I'm not going to trust anything you say, and I think I would rather trust a random news outlet over you.
Saying it's a 10 out of 10. It's better than the first one. It's such an amazing, robust, groundbreaking gameplay experience that never feels boring and always is refreshing and interesting. And I read some of these reviews, and I'm like, you know, this is very reminiscent of what happened back in 2017. In 2017, every game journalist literally got down on their knees and kissed the ass of Breath of the Wild. Like, literally right on Link's butt cheeks. They started kissing. It's disgusting, because Link he's out there fighting, you know, all kinds of shit. Octoroks and fucking Ganon and shit. His ass is very sweaty. But they're down, and they're basically kicking his butt. They're like, what are you doing?
Why is he focusing on Link's ass? What the fuck?
And I just don't get it, because here's the thing.
Link is way out of your league.
Breath of the Wild was good. All right? It will absolutely.
Oh, was it? The way you talk about it, you say
I thought that it was a really
sucks.
awesome Zelda experience with the open world that kind of had a similar kind of concept to, say, a Dark Souls game where, hey, you see it, you can go there. Right?
Oh my, wait.
I like.
I guess the comparison isn't that bad.
Dungeons, although I think I would have enjoyed more.
I thought he was gonna be like, "Oh, it's Zelda Dark Souls, dude, and every single game could crush you and kill you in a second." I'm like, I was gonna be so upset. I'm like, but I mean, if he's referencing it in that aspect, I guess it's okay. Well, you can actually go wherever you want.
Dungeons, but the fact that they had mini dungeons that were more puzzles, and then the larger
I'll
dungeons
let that
were
slide.
Beasts was kind of interesting. I thought the plot was just okay, honestly. And again, the graphics were just kind of okay.
Again, with the graphics.
Blowing me away. I tried playing it on Switch, and my Switch bricked, so I played it on Wii U. Apparently, it played better on Wii U anyway, which is kind of funny. Apparently, on Switch, it was even more choppy. But there were things that weren't perfect about the game either. The whole weapon durability system was a very big slog. It basically held the game back, because you had to always kind of worry about your weapons breaking or whatever, and I didn't really like that. I also thought that there were some things about the game that were quite annoying, certain enemy types and stuff. I thought it was a mixed bag, but it was a very positive mixed bag. I enjoyed it way more than I did.
So, translation, piggy translation here, he couldn't cheese through it. He had to actually take care and consideration for his inventory and his weapon durability, so he didn't like that. He just wants a mindless game that's short, that he can just kick out and breeze and cheese his way through and feel like a badass and finish the game really quickly. That's the translation right there.
I disliked it. A game that I liked way better that year, that for some reason the
and
game
here it is
did not kiss its butt, was Super Mario Odyssey. I thought Super Mario Odyssey was an amazing way to take Mario into the modern age. It still retained a lot of the open 3D platforming aspects of games from prior iterations, but it added in a whole new mechanic of platforming and puzzles and challenge with the hats. So I thought if anything, you're going to tell me a game that innovates. Well, all Zelda Breath of the Wild did was take Zelda and bring it into a modern era of every other game being an open world game, right?
That's innovation, dumbass. It changed up the entire Zelda format. The whole gameplay style, it changed it up drastically. It reinvented itself. It innovated itself. That's what innovation is. I'm sorry, but Mario Odyssey is nowhere near as good as Breath of the Wild, okay? Mario Odyssey is just a souped up, fancier version of Mario 64 with hats. That's all it really is, and it's not a bad game, it's still fun, but it didn't break up the formula, it didn't break the mold. It wasn't nearly as innovative as Breath of the Wild. But he says, all Breath of the Wild did was put it in an open environment. No, they changed up open world environment. And I'm like, no, they changed up literally almost everything, dumbass. I don't even think Breath of the Wild even really featured the Triforce at all. Except for like on the Princess Zelda's hand. But I think that was about it. I'm like, it totally innovated and changed everything in terms of Zelda games. So yeah, and speaking in terms of like innovation and even with quality and everything like that, I would rate Breath of the Wild higher than Mario Odyssey. And the gaming media in general agreed. And gamers agreed. Everyone agreed on this except you.
Well, I felt Mario Odyssey actually innovated. In addition, Mario Odyssey...
It didn't. And what did I always say? Never... Always believe the opposite of Phil's opinion. Whatever the opposite of Phil's opinion is the actual truth. His opinion is never correct. So whatever he's speaking out against, the opposite is usually true. So here, obviously, Breath of the Wild is better. Mario Odyssey did not innovate nearly as much. But he has a stick up his ass against Zelda and Breath of the Wild and now Tears of the Kingdom because in his dumbass opinion, I mean, he's entitled to his own opinion, wrong as it though, but now he feels jaded against the games because Mario Odyssey did not win Game of the Year that year. Breath of the Wild did. And ever since then, in his mind, this game is not deserving of that. So he's never gonna like it and makes all these bullshit excuses on why Breath of the Wild is not as good as everyone else agrees it is.
Ran beautifully on the Switch. Smooth 60 frames, gorgeous graphics, much better performing, honestly, than I felt Breath of the Wild did. And
that's because Mario Odyssey was not open world. Dumbass. You said it yourself. Open world games are always going to be a bit rougher playing than non-open world games. Because you can literally go anywhere. So obviously there's going to be a little bit of issues performance-wise. You can't have 60 frames per second on a super open world game on the Switch. I don't know, like he's literally asking for a miracle. I'm like, if this was a different platform, if this was on the PS5 or Xbox Series X, then yeah, but that's obviously not going to happen. It's Nintendo IP. So I don't know what the fuck, it's not an open world game. There's two very different types of games, and you can't have both running the same way because of the types of games they are. But you see, again, literally he only likes Mario Odyssey because it had better frame rate. That's all it takes for a game to be good, in his opinion, is 60 frames per second. As long as a game has 60 frames per second and runs smooth, it's Game of the Year in his opinion. It doesn't matter if the gameplay is boring or not. It doesn't matter if the story is shallow or not. It does not matter as long as it's 60 frames per second and the visuals look good. That's all that matters. That's what makes a game good in his opinion. I have to go back and see if there's any game that he played that ran at 60 frames per second and looked good that he did not like. because I can't think of one off the top of my head. Maybe if you remember one, go ahead and comment it on the video below. But I can't remember a single game that actually looked and ran good that he did not like. Because to him, that's all that really matters in a game. Like I said, he doesn't care about the story. He doesn't care about the gameplay. And then he says, "Oh, the Breath of the Wild story was boring or shallow." I'm like, have you played a Zelda game before? To be honest, the plots in Zelda games are never super complicated. And in terms of other Zelda games, this game is on par, if not a little bit better. Zelda does not really get kidnapped. Instead, this time, she's actually trying to keep Ganon at bay. Ganon's some kind of weird swirly cloud calamity thing now instead of just a big dude. And then you got the 4 companions from from 100 years ago, and you got the new companions as well. So I would say that the story is a lot better in Breath of the Wild than it was in Ocarina of Time, where it's just kind of like, I hate to say it because I like Ocarina of Time too, don't get me wrong, but like, Ocarina of Time is like she gets kidnapped by Ganon and you have to go save her. There's a bunch of dungeons, go beat up the monsters kind of game. There's not really that much of an in-depth plot, where there's more characters, more backstory, a lot more things going on plot-wise in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom than in older Zelda games. And people like that, obviously, and that's why they made Tears of the Kingdom. And he's just completely skipping that or discrediting all of that, all because it didn't play as good as Mario Odyssey, dude. That's literally it.
Most game journalists give like an 8, but Breath of the Wild's a 10, right?
It's better, that's why.
I was like, I don't get it. Clearly, if you're a fan of Nintendo games and you've played them all, you would see that Mario Odyssey is a better improvement than Zelda even is. You know, Breath of the Wild, I should say.
Clearly not, dumbass. Because Zelda fans, Nintendo fans looked at the two, and they all, like, I mean, it's not mutually exclusive. You can't, it's like, in his mind, it's like, oh, you can't like both of them. You have to like one over the other. And like, obviously people rated these games, and I'm pretty sure actual gamers rated these games too, not this dumbass, but other people did. Like, clearly it's not clearly people are entitled to their own opinions. Every opinion you have is wrong. Every single one. Okay? Everyone is wrong. So it's not such a black and white, distinctive, super obvious comparison that Mario Odyssey is superior to Breath of the Wild. It's not that clear cut. It's not that black and white. It's very, very arguable and down to each person's individual beliefs which game is better. Okay? It's not just, oh, you have to say it because this isn't. No, that's not the case. And people's opinions of games are very subjective. That's the whole point. So no, it's not super obvious, Phil.
So why would you always say that Breath of the Wild is 10 out of 10? And by the way, Breath of the Wild won fucking Game of the Year that year at the Game Awards. Like, why? I didn't get it, you know? And again, I'm not down-talking Breath of the Wild. I enjoyed Breath of the Wild.
No,
I
you
thought
didn't.
it was a good game, but I wasn't in love with it, and I didn't even understand.
And you see how he forces his opinion on other people. Do you see that? So he believes Mario Odyssey is better than Breath of the Wild, right? So he thinks everyone else has to see it that way too. He thinks that because that is his opinion, Mario Odyssey should have won Game of the Year award instead of Breath of the Wild, because that's his opinion and everyone else has to share his opinion. He can't fathom or realize that other people can have differing opinions than him, and that's okay too. But he's like, I can't fathom why someone would like this game over that game. Well, that's because you're a narcissist, and you only think of yourself, and you think everyone else has to think the exact same way that you think, and that is not correct. That's not how life works.
How people could be making these positive points about it when it had a lot of negative to it as well. It was kind of, like I said, it was a mix of good and bad, way more good than bad, but still it wasn't some perfect game, but a lot of people were acting like it.
What is a perfect game in your opinion, Phil? Because I can tell you what isn't a perfect game. Mario Odyssey. I got bored of that game. I couldn't finish it. Like, it's an okay game, but I, in my opinion over here, think Breath of the Wild was superior to Mario Odyssey. Does anyone even talk about Mario Odyssey anymore? No, they don't. It's gone to the wayside. No one really talks about it anymore. I haven't seen anyone mention that game in years, literally. Now, I'm not saying that's a bad game, because, like, it's still up to everyone's opinions. On a scale of 1 to 10, I would rate Mario Odyssey a 7, and I would rate Breath of the Wild probably a 9, honestly. I wouldn't say it's a full, like, perfect 10, but I would say maybe 9, 9.5. I haven't played enough of Tears of the Kingdom to actually give it a rating yet, though, but that's just me. But still, it's like, he wants to force his opinion on other people, and you can't do that. That's not going to happen. You're not going to change anyone's minds, especially not you, especially when your opinions are always incorrect, every single time.
It was. So, fast forward to today. It's literally the same situation again, from what I'm seeing, right? It seems like these games journalists are
and why does that bother you?
Criticize Tears of the Kingdom. They're literally.
Why are you even bringing this up?
And I'm like, here we go again. You know, I don't even know.
Here we go again.
The reviews are reading the same. If you read a review of Breath of the Wild and then you read it next to the review of Tears of the Kingdom, essentially it's the same review, except that they're basically saying, oh, it now has crafting, and the crafting adds even more to it, and there's more ingenuity in the puzzles and whatever. But outside of that, it's like, what else? Is there anything else? And like, So, what it is they fucking kissed Breath of the Wild's ass so badly that if they take a game that's a sequel that essentially just is a straight-up sequel to it, and they say it's not as good, then their previous review wouldn't even make sense. So, of course...
So, if you're upset that it's a sequel, so what do you exactly want, then, from a new Zelda game, if not a sequel, then? Do you want them to completely change up and innovate the Zelda franchise yet again? Another time when they just did it the game before? Like, what exactly do you want?
They're going to say it's 10 out of 10, right?
And he has said before not to trust reviewers anyway, so why is he bringing this up?
Honestly, we're going to find out. Here's the thing, all right? I am not going to go into Zelda with preconceived notions, and I'm not.
Yes, he is. Zelda. Yes, you fucking are. You're doing it right now, Phil. You're doing it right now. He already has a chip on his shoulder against Legend of Zelda. He already has preconceived notions going into this game. He didn't even like Breath of the Wild that much, and he already has preconceived notions going into it. So you're such a fucking liar.
With the intention of ripping it a new asshole. I think
that's
sadly,
what you're doing.
A lot of people who do online content these days are definitely looking for that. They're looking for something to yell at. They're looking for something to complain about, to be controversial.
That is you. You do that all the time. You are the biggest fence sitter. You are the biggest contrarian I know, Phil. Every time there's something that the entire group, every time the majority of the internet agrees that something is good, he will always come up here and say, well, I don't know, I think this game kind of sucks. Just to kind of like, oh my god, draw gasps and try to drum up some kind of like extra views or whatever. by being a contrarian asshole and trying to say, like, he really is kind of a hipster in that way. He's the one who's over here, everyone else is over here talking about how great something is, and he's over here is like, well, actually, I don't really like this for no reason other than it's popular and that everyone else likes it. So because everyone else likes it, I don't like it either. That's him in a nutshell for all these games. If a game is getting, like, he did that with Final Fantasy VII Remake too when that came out. He was shitting on that a lot. Every single game. Minecraft, he did that. He shit on Minecraft for so fucking long. And then he finally fucking played. He's like, well, actually, it's not that bad. I'm like, well, then what were you spending years and years shitting on people for playing it then? You contrarian asshole.
Solid on my Switch, starting tomorrow, all day long we're playing this. We're playing it on the first and second streams. I'm going to give this game a fair shake.
No, you're not.
Gonna, judge it for what it is.
No, you're not. Right, you already gave it a bad shake in your head. From what I've seen, I'm not necessarily in love with the idea that half the game is crafting. If I wanted to play a game that was full of crafting, I would either play Minecraft or I would play, Fortnite Battle Royale before they got rid of the crafting. You know what I'm saying? Like, I wouldn't be playing a game that already has established gameplay elements that everyone likes and wants, and now this has to take a back seat. Apparently you don't like it.
Combine it with crafting from other franchises. I'm a little confused at this, of how this is supposed to be something that is going to be a 10 out of 10 situation when all you've done is taken something from another franchise, lifted it, pasted it into your game, 10 out of 10. How? I don't get it, and I don't even understand how it's going to really fit in, because I do feel like it's going to end up being something that kind of holds us all back, right?
See, again, he's talking about how he is wanting to rush the game, how he's wanting to complete this game as fast as possible to get it off of his schedule so he can go on to the next game. He doesn't care. He doesn't care if it's fun or if it adds anything to the game. He's just worried that it's gonna make the game slow down a bit, and he's afraid that it's gonna take him even longer to complete. But really, it makes sense to add somewhat of a crafting system to it, because, like, Zelda is all about its different puzzles, dungeon puzzles and everything like that, solving little puzzles here and there in the dungeons or whatever, and completing that. So it makes sense to add crafting to it. But this is the thing I don't get, right? Every genre has been invented by now. Every single thing that you could possibly think of has been done in a video game. So what the fuck does he want people to do? He literally wants people to reinvent the wheel and create something that no one has ever seen before in a video game. And that's arguably never going to happen again, because literally everything has been tried, everything has been done before. So I really don't know what exactly he expects or wants with these lofty, impossible aspirations that he has for games in order to be a quote-unquote 10 out of 10 for him. Because he's like, oh, well, you take this and add it from this genre of games to this genre of games. Yeah, that's what everyone does now. What else are they gonna do, Phil? How else are they gonna make a game new? They can't just invent a whole new genre from the ground up out of nothing. Every single game you have ever played has borrowed an element from a different game. That's how gaming kind of works. Like, am I just going like insane here? Because it's like every game, like everything has been done in gaming already. Like, there's so many different genres, and people have always, since the start of games, been combining genres. It's like it's an action game, but it's an RPG, or it's a crafting game, but it's also simulated game, or it's a survival game, but with crafting in it. Like, what do you think Grand Theft Auto is, Phil? Like, Grand Theft Auto series was one of the first ones to innovate and add different genres kind of into it. Like, I don't really understand what he is wanting or expecting with these impossible... And he does this for multiple games, not just Zelda. every time a big hype new game comes out, he just complains how, oh, this game just stole this from this other game and put it in here. And I'm like, yeah, and they're making their own, like, it's like crafting a game, right? It's like crafting in games, but making a game. So, like, I'm gonna take, it's like alchemy. I'm gonna take a little bit of this thing that I saw in this one game. I'm gonna throw that in the pot. I'm gonna take a little bit of crafting. I'm gonna throw that in a pot. Add a little bit of RPG elements. Sprinkle a little bit of action in there. Let me mix it up. And I made something new. That's really all people can do nowadays in terms of making games. If they want to make their game unique and kind of different, you just kind of mix up a few game elements from different games, and like, there you go. Like, Grand Theft Auto wasn't the first game where you stole cars or drove cars around. Like, they borrowed that from other games. So I really don't understand what he's bitching about.
So, I guess we're going to see. Let's see what happens, all right? And, I'll judge it fairly like I always do.
No, you
at face
won't.
Value.
Bullshit.
I'll be honest
Fairly
with you.
my ass.
I hope it's good. It's going to feel a little weird and nostalgic. Here's why. Breath of the Wild was the first playthrough ever, way back in 2017. So you're talking 6 years ago, when I actually became an interactive streamer. That's right. That was the early 2017. Before that playthrough, I was basically someone who made content for just on-demand viewers.
Yeah, I remember back then. I don't remember what was actually the first game that he actually was trying to stream or not, though. But I do remember that era, and I remember the black shirt emergency begging video where he's like, "Oh my god, guys, the adpocalypse on YouTube is here. I don't know if I can survive just making videos. Please tell me what to do." And his dumbass fans are like, "You should stream, Phil. Go back to Twitch like you were on before and stream." "Oh, maybe I will do that. I don't know." And like, he was just basically spent the entire stream just crying to his audience that he was losing like a lot of money on ad revenue. And he was the last pony to the show, finally crossing that finish line to become an interactive streamer, when everyone else had been doing it for a long, long time before then. And he finally decided to join that. He literally will not change unless something forces him to change his setup. If nothing forces him to change, he will keep doing the same shit and keep stagnating over and over again without ever trying anything new unless something forces his hand and forces him to change. And that's what finally forced him to become a lot interactive live streamer, guys.
Even though I had a live audience of hundreds and sometimes thousands, I ignored them. Now, let me ask you a question. Does that make any sense? If hundreds
Yeah,
of
it sounds
thousands
like
of
you're
people
kind of a
are
fucking
coming to your
moron,
streams
huh?
and tune into you every day, why would you act like they're not there? And the answer is because I was an idiot. You know, I didn't understand
You still
the
are.
giant potential that I had to be an interactive streamer.
And now you have less than a quarter of those of people watching you than you did before. If you had actually, when you very first tried starting Twitch, and if you actually kept that up and kept doing it and actually talked to your audience, you would be making a hell of a lot more money than you are now. But as you admitted, you're an idiot, and you're streaming to a lot less people every stream than you were back then.
And when I started doing it, and my content changed, because I was having fun, meaningful conversations, because people were actually
meaningful. Again, he says meaningful.
And sometimes if I got stuck,
but what is a fun, meaningful conversation he has with his audience? Yelling at them that they're not paying attention?
Their own, knowledge and stuff like that, rather than just be me trying to do it cold.
Please help hold my hand so I can finish this game. This is why your content suffers, Phil. Your content before was not very good either, but at least it was fun and entertaining to see you flub and flail around being confused and lost. But now, ever since you started streaming, your fucking dumbass dents will just tell you exactly what to do. You might as well not even play the game and just let your fans play it for you at this point, because that's all they're really doing.
My content changed a lot, and I do feel like today, my content today is just way more meaningful.
Again,
really
meaningful. It is not meaningful,
right?
Phil.
Because I really
anything you think is meaningful is not. There's no meaning to it. It's all garbage.
Streaming, as opposed to me just sitting here playing games for myself. So it's funny because I remember distinctly while playing Breath of the Wild, having those conversations with everyone. Wow, everyone, I'm talking with you guys now. What do you want to talk about when I'm playing? And people, I remember back then people were trying to troll. They were doing like 10-cent, cheers. It was 10-bit cheers over on Twitch. And essentially, it pop-ups constantly on the screen. I was like, how am I going to play the game when the pop-ups never end, right?
Now you just block everyone instantly, so you can't... Oh, it's kind of fun.
At that point, you know what I'm saying?
And that's why you block all of them now? So they can't even do that?
Yeah, so let's play it by ear tomorrow. Let's be fair, playing it all day, both streams. Let's see for ourselves and judge, how much of a major game is this new crafting system? Is it really going to change the face of how the game plays? How fun is it? If every games journalist is saying 10 out of 10, yes, sadly, I hate to say it, have to kind of take it with a grain of salt.
Contrarian.
They did exactly the same thing with Breath of the Wild, and I thought that was a far from perfect game. Good game, but a far from perfect one, okay? However, I will say this. It does dishearten me when it comes to like the Game of the Year awards this year.
See?
Because if all the journalists are just saying 10 out of 10 Zelda, this is what they did in 2017, and Breath of the Wild's immediately just a shoo-in for Game of the Year. Yeah, but there's a lot of other games coming out this year that have really good potential. I think this year, we actually have big potential.
Like what?
To actually see a game that
give me some names, Phil.
Game of the Year contender be one.
Give me some names.
We might have a fighting game with Street Fighter 6, or maybe Mortal Kombat 12. Tekken 8. Maybe we could have a fighting
game. You really
think
Street Fighter 6 is going to be Game of the Year? I mean,
that would be pretty cool. Because that shit
I kind of doubt it. That's more of a competitive fighter. That's not going to be...
What about overall? If a game is providing content, if a game is providing great control, great graphics, tons of replayability, just because it's a certain genre, it's not eligible. Oh, but Zelda is just by default...
I think, the majority of Game of the Year awards are usually single-player games, though. Like, I don't think that many actual, like, multiplayer competitive type games ever really win Game of the Year. I don't think. It's usually some story-driven kind of... story narrative-driven kind of game that is single-player. So that would exclude Street Fighter 6 or any other fighting game for that matter. Especially when I can almost guarantee that single-player mode in Street Fighter 6 is not going to be long at all. And so yeah, no freaking fighting game is going to be Game of the Year awards. Any other ones that you think is going to be Game of the Year, Phil? Because it can't be a fighting game. I mean, there probably will be a bunch of Game of the Year contenders, but not the ones he's thinking of.
Always the Game of the Year, right? I don't believe that. So I guess we'll see what happens, but starting tomorrow, it's Zelda time, all day long, first and second gameplay streams, okay?
Like, there's a bunch of, like, more obscure RPGs, JRPGs, that personally I thought would be better as Game of the Year than... What was it last year? No, it wasn't Last of Us 2. I can't remember what it was actually this past year. But usually, like, the game... Usually I disagree with what the Game of the Year award actually is. Every once in a while, yeah, I agree. But usually there's some, like, more, like, overlooked game that I think should have won Game of the Year, in my opinion. But that doesn't mean I'm instantly gonna hate on that game and have to stick up my ass against that game or whatever, or the game company because of that.
On Saturday, it's going to be DSP versus the Internet. This is my weekly clip react show where I react to clips that the members of the channel have nominated.
Is that it?
Channel members out, because if you wait till the very last minute, you can even put Elden Ring in there through those on the arcade modes.
Alright, we're done with this video, and then we got one more I want to look at. This is after his initial reaction to Tears of the Kingdom after playing it for 5 hours. And I believe after 5 hours, he's still in the tutorial island. He has not left the tutorial island yet.
What I think about the initial gameplay of The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. All right, so yesterday I played this game for about 5 hours. It was 3 hours on my first premiere stream, and then it was about another 2 hours on the late night stream. Okay, you might say, well, how did it go? What did you think?
No one's asking you about that, really, because no one cares about your opinion.
It is an improvement from Breath of the Wild. I can tell you that. However, it ain't much of an improvement. All right, what I did notice was more detail in the environments, and in particular in things like the shadows and the water. I found a distinct improvement.
How? How do you know that, Phil? Huh? Because Breath of the Wild came out in 2017, and there's no damn way in hell he remembers exactly what the graphics look like or how the game actually played in 2017 to compare it to today's graphics from this game. Because he can't even remember what he said a week ago, let alone from 2017. So, like, unless he went back and recently watched some of his gameplay from before, but if he's just going based on his own memory and hasn't actually seen any gameplay since then of it recently, then there's no way in hell he can remember that.
Graphics, okay? When I'm in the water, like, it's actually reflective and it looks realistic. In the last game, it looked like goo, okay? And the same thing with the shadows, like, you know, the shadows didn't look that good in the first game.
And again, we're just on visuals. That's all he cares about.
Up front, I wanted to play Tears of the Kingdom. I wanted to play Breath of the Wild on the Switch. I bought a Switch specifically for it, and my Switch died the day that Breath of the Wild came out. Like, literally bricked.
You broke it.
So I had to play it on Wii U.
Because you left it on the whole time.
The comparison that I have is, you know, Wii U version of Breath of the Wild versus Switch version of Tears of the Kingdom.
Do you think he remembers how Breath of the Wild played on the Wii U? Because there's no way in hell he remembers back then on how the game played. And that's another reason why he's salty for against Breath of the Wild, was because in his dumbass mind, oh, it's almost just like it's the game's fault that my Switch bricked and I had to play it on the Wii U, so that's strike one of prejudices against the game. And strike two would be that Mario Odyssey won. Strike two would be that Breath of the Wild beat Mario Odyssey in the Game of the Year awards back then. So that is strike two. So yeah, he has all these bullshit fake reasons on why he does not like the game.
And that, all right. I can't really make a direct comparison. I wish I could. All right. So the graphics definitely are slightly improved. I would say there's more detail in the environments. However, the graphics are still at most 30 frames per second. And yes, I definitely noticed skips, freezes, and frame rate drops at key moments. You know, in the middle of combat, all of a sudden, bloop. Well, wait, I don't want the frame rate to dip now in the middle of a fight, right? Or, you know,
that's not going to affect your gameplay at all. We've all seen how bad you are playing it.
All of a sudden, the game's chugging along.
These kind of seem like excuses.
Like, what? Seriously? Like, how is this a modern game that still runs like this? And the worst part about it is Nintendo's charging $10 more. They're charging $69.99 for.
Again, every major game coming out now is $70. It's not just Nintendo doing it. It's not just for Tears of the Kingdom. There is a lot of Xbox Series X and PlayStation 5 games being $70. Every major game nowadays is $70 unless it's like an indie game or something. Or if it's an older, like PS4, Xbox One type of game. But if it's for the current generation, if it's from PS5, Xbox Series X, or Switch, most of them are being $70. Also, I have played Tears of the Kingdom myself since since the game came out, I was playing it. I don't know exactly how many hours I have in it, but I'm farther than Phil, I know. At least at this point, I'm farther than Phil. I don't know if I am, like, at the end of recording this, but I was, at the time, farther than Phil, and I didn't notice any issues with the performance at all. I didn't have any stuttering. I didn't have any frame drops. I was playing it on my TV that docked, though, so I'm assuming he was playing it docked on his TV too, because I don't think he actually ever takes it out. I think it's pretty much hooked up to his TV the whole time. So we were both playing it docked. So I don't know how old his Switch is. I have the Animal Crossing Switch, so I don't have the OLED Switch. I have the Animal Crossing one. So it's not a Gen 1 Switch, but I don't think that makes much of a difference anyway, because I think graphically they're about the same anyway, though, right? So, and the OLED, that just has a better screen if you're playing in handheld mode. That doesn't have better processing power. So, I don't know what the fuck he's talking about. Maybe it's an issue with his actual, like, capture card as opposed to his game. Because I was playing the game for hours and I never had any kind of performance issues that I noticed. And yes, it's playing 30 frames per second, but I can't really visually tell the difference between 60 frames per second and 30 frames per second. And you're going to be very hard pressed to find a game on the Switch running at 60 frames per second without any other kind of technical issue because it's running at 60 frames per second. So, yeah, I wanted to run at 60 frames per second. You'd probably have a lot more visual issues going on then because it's running at 60 frames per second than rather than capping it at 30. But I don't know this bullshit about him actually having, like, I don't know if this is some excuse for him dying a lot and he's just using that as some kind of excuse because he does like to do that a lot. Was like, oh, the game bugged out and dropped frame rate right when I was about to attack, and that's why I died, guys. Or some bullshit like that. Or if he's just, like, again, has that stick up his ass and he's just butthurt about this game, so he's finding any small little excuse he can to shit on the game. You know? So, like, I never experienced any technical issues or frame rate issues playing it.
For Tears of the Kingdom. For what? I don't know. I honestly don't know. I'm like, looking at how the game is performing, I don't understand where the extra money went. Because it literally looks like Breath of the Wild, which, by the way, isn't a knock or a slant. It's just, it looks like a game from 6 years ago. So where did the $10 go? And why did Nintendo feel like they were justified in charging it? It's a good question, okay?
Also, considering the size and the scope of Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, it's kind of remarkable that they were managed to fit all of that on a single game cartridge for the Switch and still have it work fine. Because it does work fine. It plays fine. Yes, it's 30 frames per second, but without any major graphical or technical issues, playing relatively smoothly. It's kind of a miracle in and of itself that they were able to fit such a large game, such a large-scale game on the Switch in the first place. So maybe that's where the money went. Them trying to make it still function and play fine on such a small size that they had to deal with all the limitations they were having to deal with for the current Switch.
Now, the gameplay elements, all right? This is what I was most apprehensive and skeptical about, all right? So right off the bat, when you start with Tears of the Kingdom, you get introduced to all these new gameplay elements. There's basically, it's not really building, because I think the gameplay that they showed you as a preview made you feel more like you're going to be building things like Minecraft, and that's really not the case. What it really is kind of combining and sticking things together. as opposed to actually building things from the ground up. It's not like, oh, I have a formula where, you know, I need 10 tree branches and 3 pieces of twine and a stone, and I build a raft. It's more like, okay, so there's some logs around. There just happens to be a sail, which is really weird that there's just sails laying around in the environment, but they are. Maybe there's a motor on the ground or whatever, right? And then you use your new ability to essentially stick items together, like with glue. And it's actually funny because it looks like glue. It looks like green glue holding items together in the environment. And it works, but it is a little wonky and a little unrefined. And here's what I mean by that. Like, they try to make it be as easy as possible, but you can only move in 2 dimensions. You can only rotate things on either a horizontal or a vertical axis. You can't fully 3D rotate an item. And because of that, you're limited in the way that you can move an item. And if you want to get it a certain way, sometimes it can be very frustrating to rotate it to get it exactly the way you want.
Maybe if you're a monkey. Right? So he is right that it's like, yeah, oh, I need to get it to stand up straight vertical, but it's like on its side, so it's a little wonky. But you just rotate it to the way where it's facing you, and then you go push it up a little bit, and then you can just turn the whole thing once it's facing the way you want, and it'll be standing up. Right? It's not that hard. It's pretty simple to figure out. I have to turn it this way first, and then I could turn it vertical, and it'll be standing straight up and down. It's really not that hard. I'm pretty sure kids can figure that out. You don't need to have it full 3D control of it, 360 control of it.
Right? There's also, it's kind of hard to create distance. Like, for example, if you have an item floating in front of you and you want to attach it to something right there, sometimes you can't really get the distance right. Oh, I just want to have it snap right next to the side.
I think you just need some glasses, Phil.
It's hard to get it in the right position.
Because we all know your eyesight
sucks. Like
sucks.
it's full control. It feels like they did their best with what they could do with a standard controller, control scheme.
Exactly, because if you wanted 100% full control, you would probably need a damn mouse, Phil. And it's not a PC game. But I think it's just your eyesight. I think you sit too far away from your TV. You refuse to get glasses even though it's quite obvious you need them.
But it really doesn't feel like that.
And stop picking at your damn face. Why are you picking at your, shitty ass
it doesn't
beard?
Feel like that. So,
mustache.
Anyway, it's a little wonky. You want to stick stuff
Hitler
together,
looking
and you can't necessarily
douchebag.
get things to stick together properly. All right. As for how to solve puzzles, what I like about it, all right, is that basically you can do things in different ways, it seems. Like, it seems to me like, okay, so the obvious common sense way to do this is to build a platform, put a hook on it, have that hook on this big, like metal rod, and then just have it like glide down almost like a gondola. But then it seems like there may be other ways to solve things as well. Like, there were things that I did more creatively. Like, instead of doing a
Phil being creative?
I, like
I don't know about that.
One that actually made it a little bit more interesting or made it a little bit more easy to build or whatever.
Nope.
Or maybe it was a little bit more stable than the elements that were put right in front of me. An example of this
He doesn't have a creative bone in his entire body.
And I take that back. I came out of a cave and there was a temple above me that I needed to do. All right? And I was like, well, how do I get up there? So I found 5 giant trees, chopped them down, stuck them all together, and made this huge log bridge to go up there. So I go up there and people were like, well, actually, there was like multiple ways to do this. You did one, but you also could have climbed these vines that were kind of hidden on the other side, but you could have done this other thing too. And I was like, that's kind of interesting. That basically they present you with just do this, get there.
I'm pretty sure Breath of the Wild did this also.
Say, do whatever you want. Toss you to the wolves. Figure it out. And there are, multiple ways to do it. I'm actually really enjoying that part of it, the game, okay? Now, it's not just about the combining of things in the environment to solve puzzles. It's also about combining weapons. Now, this is interesting, but I am a little worried about this because it seems like any weapon you find in the game isn't very good. On its own merits, they're all weak. What it seems like is you need to find a weapon and then combine it with another item to make it good. So, for example, you find a giant long bow staff. Well, it's weak as shit, but it's got good...
And keep in mind, he is still only in the tutorial island. Of course, any weapon you will find in the tutorial island is going to be weak as shit That is why they're trying to teach you all of these game mechanics so you can survive and learn. God, like, maybe I should go and actually see how many times he actually died in the tutorial island or something. Because, my God, yeah, no shit. Probably when you get, like, I know for a fact, because I made it to Hyrule, once you get into actual Hyrule, you're going to start finding more and more stronger weapons and stuff, dumbass. That's kind of how the game progresses. It's not going to give you a super strong weapon in the tutorial.
So if you find spiky thorns, attach it to the end, now you've got a pointy spear, and now all of a sudden it's a damaging long-range weapon that's really useful, right? Or, you know, you got a sword. Sword's okay. But you attach a rock or a giant boulder to the end of it, and now you've got a giant swinging club that does great damage and stuns things around you. It can also break down stone walls. So I do like this, but at the same time, it does seem like the entire game will be just combining items together like that, and never will you actually just find something that's good on its own merits. It's all about combine, combine, combine. Even the arrows.
What difference does it make if it's good on its own merits or not when he's just gonna bitch about weapon durability anyway?
Like, the standard arrows suck. They're super duper weak, and they almost have no use. But if you combine an arrow with a fire plant, now you make a fire bomb. If you combine it with an actual real bomb, now you make an explosive, you see? It's neat, but at the same time, is it Zelda? And honestly, you know, here's what I can say. Like, there's other elements too. There's two more elements. There's one element, it's called, is it called Rise, where you just go straight up and you actually teleport through something that's standing directly above your head. And that's fine. It's an interesting mechanic. And then you've got the time manipulation. I think it's called Rewind. So you can make anything kind of rewind 20, 30 seconds from what it was doing. And you can use this to maybe jump on a platform that was traveling and go back in time and go back across a chasm or whatever. The elements are nice, but are they Zelda? I mean,
yes.
If you look at other Zelda games, there's absolutely these puzzle elements that are part of them. The hook
I'm
shot.
pretty sure older Zelda games had a way to, like, rewind things to make them go in the opposite way. I can't think of which game it was, but I'm pretty sure before Breath of the Wild there's a way to, like, make things go in reverse and everything. And so instead of having fire arrows, you can combine them together. So you don't have to go out and buy fire arrows or bomb arrows. You can combine them together. Instead of a torch, you can combine a light plant thing with an arrow and shoot it, and it'll stick in the ground and light things up. So it's still fucking Zelda. It's just, instead of going and buying these items separately, you're combining them together. But it's still fucking Zelda, dumbass.
Shot, or a special type of arrow, right? Or the bomb, or the super bomb, or, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's always been an element of certain kind of Zelda. But it seems like from the get-go in this game, literally all you're doing is the abilities. Like, it seems like they actually abandoned...
Because they're new abilities they are trying to teach you, dumbass. Before they let you go hog wild in the game, they gotta teach you the new mechanics of that game. And then once they release you into the actual open world, then you can go hog wild and do whatever the fuck you want. But before that, they have to teach your dumb Neanderthal brain, hey, dumbass, these are the new mechanics, the new game features. These are how you do things. Okay, now you can go and do it however you want, but this is how you do it. Of course, in the beginning of the game, they're going to try to teach you all the new mechanics and how to actually play the fucking game. You are still in the tutorial, dummy.
The core elements of Zelda that used to be core Zelda, they're not even in the game. I played 5 hours, and I can't tell you I did anything in the game that felt like classic Zelda at all. You know what I'm saying?
Because you're in the tutorial.
So, if you like classic Zelda, there's almost none of it in here. And that's kind of a problem, I feel. There's going to be people who come back to Zelda after, 5-6 years, every time, when they make a new iteration. And you're like, oh, this is exciting. We're going back to the classic tropes that we love, the things that we're used to. And with Breath of the Wild, I feel like what they did is they pushed the series in a new modern direction, which they needed to do, because Zelda games had felt very outdated for a while. because they weren't really updating them. They were just making them the same thing over and over. And when you're using...
And this in lies the problem. The old, like, he wants Zelda, he wants games to never change, like he himself never changes. He will stagnate and stay on the same line doing the same shit year after year after year after year until something forces him to change and deviate course, right? And so he wants games to stay the same course year after year after year and never change course. I mean, I get what he's saying a little bit too, but like, cause yeah, I mean, for nostalgic wise, I do kind of miss the more traditional Zelda games. Like, if they made us, because it's hit and miss, because they obviously want to appeal to more modern gamers, but at the same time, they're still maintaining enough, I feel they're maintaining enough of what makes Zelda Zelda in these new games. But I get what he means in terms of, like, going to this dungeon, finding a new item or a new weapon, and then using that weapon on this boss, beating the boss, and then starting to use that weapon to find new areas kind of thing. And it's a very linear type of game, though. And, like, such archaic type of gameplay would be very hard to sell in modern day, I feel. Unless it is a remake of a classic, or like maybe if you wanted to do like an actual spin-off sequel to one of the older Zelda games and then keep making the Breath of the Wild style type of games. Like they just made Tears of the Kingdom, maybe they can have like a spin-off sequel to Wind Waker that wasn't the shitty ass DS game. The like Wind Waker 2, and like it still looks and feels and plays just like classic Zelda on Wind Waker or whatever. Because I know I didn't like the DS ones, like that was supposedly the sequel to Wind Waker, Phantom Tracks, whatever it was. I didn't like that one, but that was just me. Anyway, I mean, I kind of get what he's talking about, but it's very hard for such an archaic, older formula style game to survive in the modern age.
Outdated tropes. Things like required backtracking and stuff like that, it becomes very frustrating and time-consuming, right? And then in Breath of the Wild, they kind of undid a lot of that. They made it like open world exploration. They made, you know what I mean? Like, and it was kind of a unique take, a different take on Zelda that pushed it into the modern era.
They're
But
innovating,
now, in Tears of the Kingdom,
dumbass.
it almost feels like they threw away everything from classic Zelda. It's all now tossed. Now it's all just these new elements. Get used to them because this is the whole game. Like them or not, this is what you're doing for the game.
Oh my gosh. You are still in the tutorial island in the sky where it... Okay, so in Tears of the Kingdom, if you haven't played it, you kind of start out like in this sky island type thing, and you have this new like robot things called the Zonai, and it's like it's trying to set up its own kind of story thing, but then after you beat that tutorial, you go back to Hyrule. So it's still Hyrule, it's still, once you actually beat the tutorial, it's back to normal Zelda game with some added elements to keep it fresh. But obviously in the beginning, in the tutorial island thing, they gotta teach you all the new game mechanics. That's kind of how that works, Phil. It's not, the whole game is not gonna be just like that. You're gonna eventually go back to Hyrule, and you're gonna have all the normal Zelda tropes that you're not really gonna see. You're gonna have your Boglins and your Octoroks and your whatever else. But he is impatient. He literally just wants then just play Breath of the Wild again if you want that. But eventually you'll get back to normal fucking Zelda tropes,
And
dumbass.
listen, I don't hate the elements. I'm actually enjoying them, and I was actually nervous watching some of the gameplay that was revealed by Nintendo early on of this game, because I was like, man, if this is really the whole game, it might not feel good. Honestly, 5 hours in, and we're going to talk a little bit more because we did get out of the tutorial area and got to the open world, and we'll talk about that in a second.
But
5 hours in,
then why
I
are
think
you
I've
bitching?
enjoyed everything I've done in the game. I
You
really
dumb
do think I
motherfucker.
have. We did 4 mini temples, which are the same as those temples that were in the original Breath of the Wild.
They're
where there's
called
just, like,
shrines.
you know, like challenges of platforming or using the puzzle elements of the game to traverse and or make progress. So I like those.
Gee,
Okay.
almost reminiscent of classic nostalgic Zelda games, huh, dumbass?
And I did like the whole first environment is a giant floating island that has all these different things to it. You know, you got different elevations you need to figure out how to get to, different climates. You have to start cooking the food and using the food to warm yourself so you don't
Breath
freeze.
of the Wild did that
Stuff
too.
like that. This is all stuff from the first game, but it's a good way to introduce you back into this environment. If you haven't, especially me, I only played Breath of the Wild once 6 years ago. So this is a good way.
That's what they're trying to do. So why are you bitching about this if you know that it's the tutorial island and you got off the tutorial island supposedly and fucking went to Hyrule? Then if that's the case, you know damn well that all the shit that you were saying about, oh, well, it's like a totally new game is not true.
Reintroduce you to all of
You're just wasting everyone's fucking time. God,
I'm
damn.
really enjoying it so far. But no bosses. In fact, no even significant enemy fights. So far, you're just fighting very generic enemies. The combat.
Actually, in the tutorial island, there was an optional boss, like right next to the cave that you have to go into in the ice world area, that you could fight right there. But you didn't have to fight it because it's open world. So, like, if you're just rushing from destination to destination and not actually exploring, you might miss it. But no, there was a fire, like, I forget exactly what it's called, but there's like a fire box type thing that like formed a bigger box thing, like in the tutorial island there, that you could have beat that boss, but you didn't, because you just rush from one spot to another.
That actually feels like it may be the weak point of the game. You know, the traversal, the puzzles, the actual world exploration all seem good and seem fun.
I'm sure there's going to be plenty of
It's very
bosses
wonky.
for
Like,
you.
You lock on with left trigger and you jump around to dodge, which isn't very effective, honestly. And mostly it's just kind of
That's because of your bad,
now, maybe it'll get more effective,
reflexes,
get better weapons or whatever. Right now it's literally mash, 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 and that's the combat. It's like, that's kind of boring, you know. And even in other Zelda games, in Skyward Sword, it had an element of aiming when you attack and slash. And it seems like maybe that's not even in this at this point. Like, basically they turned it into a mash fest, and now all the focus will be on puzzles. All right, and that actually is something that I was a little nervous about. If you remember, I said if this becomes just 100% about these building or combining elements, will it feel like Zelda? So here's what I have to say so far, and we're not talking about the open world yet because we got to that, and I'll talk about that in a moment.
Oh my god!
For the
so
intro
why
segment, which is about 4 hours long,
this man's a
interesting
retard.
graphics, not bad but not good. Awesome and interesting puzzle and gameplay elements. Great world design and exploration. I like the temples, and the story so far is good, but I don't think I'm playing Zelda. Like, I think that might be an issue. For those who like Zelda, I don't think the game plays like Zelda at all. I don't feel like this is Zelda. I feel like this is a new game franchise that Nintendo is now, you know, attempting to push to the forefront, and they've abandoned all their old...
But he supposedly got to Hyrule in the open world area. And correct me if I'm wrong, but Skyward Sword withstanding, almost every single Zelda game was kind of a not button mash, but like you always locked onto enemies and push the button to hit your sword and dodge out of the way. I'm pretty sure almost every Zelda game played that way. So which is it? Do you want innovation and for them to totally change the combat mechanics? Or do you want everything to stay the same? You're sounding like a hypocrite here, Phil. Which one are you gonna pick? Because you're sounding like a huge hypocrite. Like, do you want them to change or do you not want them to change? There was a boss. You just didn't go and find it. Because you're rushing the beginning area. So again, and then he himself is saying that he got to the open world part, which feels a lot more like a Zelda game than the beginning island. So what the fuck's he talking about?
Make Zelda great. And are you okay with that? I mean, if you are, then that's great. But I think there are going to be some people who may play it and like,
Not really, because they're not as stupid as you.
Why is it not? Where are the classic Zelda things? There's even enemies here. Like, there's an enemy called a like. Yes, the name of the enemy is actually a like. What is it? It's a big worm. And in classic Zelda, this enemy existed. I remember the stupid enemy called like, because it's the stupidest name ever. All right? So it's in the game, but does it have anything to do with, like, Zelda gameplay? Not really. You have to wait for it to have a weak point in the face, shoot it with an arrow, then another weak point is exposed, shoot it with another arrow, run up, beat the shit out of its weak point with a sword, back up, wait again for the weak point to be exposed. It doesn't feel like Zelda at all. Really, it doesn't. It's like they really were going for something different here. Okay?
So instead, you just want to mash it with a sword like classic Zelda, then.
There you go. Now, after 4
it's
hours
taking
of
too
tutorial,
long.
yes, it takes 4 hours to get through the intro tutorial in the floating island. You finally jump down to the overworld of the game, which is the planet's surface. And when you get there,
You mean
immediately
Hyrule?
you're like, I feel at home. If you've played Breath of the Wild, you start looking around and you're like, okay, I look over here and I can see a temple that's glowing, mark it on the map.
Then why the fuck were you fucking complaining about how it doesn't feel like a Zelda game? Like, you knew this part was fucking coming, so why were you spending half an hour bitching and complaining that it doesn't feel like a Zelda game when now you're saying, okay, well now I feel like I'm at home? Why were you fucking doing that then, huh, dumbass? Were you just trying to lead on people? Your dumbass fans? No, it's because you're looking for any and every opportunity to shit on the game because you don't like it. And it's clear you're not a real gamer, don't really care about actual Zelda games.
So I could go do it.
Jesus.
Here, oh, cool. There's a landmark out in the distance that looks really neat. You know we're going to get to
Probably a lot of bosses out there too, huh?
Oh, look, over here we got a castle in the
Dumbass.
background. There's a tower to explore. Here's this, here's that. Enemies in the environment. And that's neat. Because, again, you feel like you're playing classic Zelda. Or at least not classic, but at least you feel like some kind of a tie to old Zelda when you hit the overworld and it feels like Breath of the Wild again. Okay? So at least in that regard, you got some ties to the older Zelda gameplay. Alright? And I did enjoy that. We only played the overworld, I'd say, for maybe 30 minutes. We ran out of time. Last night on the late stream, I didn't get to do as much as I would have liked. I think we did 2 optional dungeons, which only take like 10-15 minutes each. And then we did like 1 tower, in which we found those Korok creatures, the little creatures that are like made of plants or leaves. Those are back, and they're all hidden with puzzles. When you solve a puzzle, the Korok will give you a Korok seed, and people are saying I guess you could trade those in for upgrades or something like that. I don't remember exactly what it was. Some people said you could trade it in for some kind of a stat upgrade or something. Or was it inventory space? I think that's actually what it was. People were saying you could trade those in to get more inventory slots. So now you're not limited to only having a certain amount of items in your inventory or something like that. Okay? So, after exploring the open world for about 30-40 minutes, I was having a good time and we ran out of time. And I think that's going to be what the hook of this game is, just like Breath of the Wild. Is it necessarily the story that hooks you? No. Is it necessarily the dungeons that hook you? No. It really is the open world. How much content there is in the open world. The interesting aspect of exploring. What's over there? What's that in the distance? What's this? What's that? Right? All of that stuff seems interesting. And that's what hooks you. And I'm excited to jump into it tonight. Because when I play it tonight, that's exactly what we're doing. Like, literally, that's what we're doing. Because we're going to the open world and trying to jump in, head first. And seeing what we can discover. I might not even do story tonight, although it was recommended to me. If you advance the plot line, at least a couple story missions, you get the paraglider, which is essential for getting around for traversal. So maybe we should just focus on the story tonight to try to get.
See, they're holding his hand again. Just let him fucking play the game
to start
and fuck it up himself.
Even further, right? So, yeah, that's what I think. I think tonight should be a fun stream. Now, what I'm curious about is what you guys think. All right? Because I would like to give you some perspective here. First of all, the streams yesterday did pretty good. The first stream, we started off with like 400 to 500 viewers. By the end, it tapered off to just under 400, which is expected because we got to take a break in there. Second stream, late stream, did pretty good. I'd say I had around 300 or so viewers. That's not bad for a late night stream. Okay? But all things must be put into a proper perspective. Okay? So what I mean by that is what we really got to do to see how stuff is performing is taking a look overall at the video performance overnight. And if I take a look at these Zelda videos from overnight, all right, part 1 has 1,600 views, and all the other parts have around 500 views out of 5 parts, 5 hours. Now, that's not even 24 hours these videos have been live on the internet. So it's definitely not something to judge by yet. But I can outright tell you, all right, that when I played like Resident Evil 4 Remake, when I played Dead Space Remake, even when I played Hogwarts Legacy, those games were getting way more attention than my Zelda playthrough is right now. Okay? And quite frankly, I'll be honest, I think my Zelda playthrough is good. There's some really funny moments of there of me kind of messing around and screwing up. I think the commentary is pretty good. Like, it's not like I'm not liking the game or I'm bored by it. I'm having a good time with it. I had great interaction with the audience. I do feel like it's a strong playthrough at this point. But I told you guys something. I absolutely told you guys something about a week ago. I said, I remember when I was playing Breath of the Wild, okay? And here's the deal.
And
right?
here's the third strike, ladies and gentlemen.
For Nintendo games. I know that's sad, because I think Nintendo games are some of the best out there. I particularly
Bullshit. Bull fucking shit. Phil, you cultivated your viewing audience to hate Nintendo games because for years, for fucking years, Phil, you have bitched, complained, and outright shat on Nintendo games. Your viewers saw this, and they reacted to that, and now they don't like Nintendo games either because they're sheep, and they're following everything their cult leader says. So you cultivated your audience to not like Nintendo games. And so, because of that, they're not going to show up for your Nintendo games. That's kind of how that works, Phil. For such a long time, he always shat on Nintendo games, and now he's over here trying to pretend that he loves Nintendo games all of a sudden. Oh, really? Where does this fucking come from, Phil? I thought you were an Xbox fan, Phil. What the fuck are you talking about? When was the last time he played any game on the Switch? You see his home screen on the Switch, and it has Pokemon Scarlet on there, and that was looking like the last game that was played on his Switch, not counting Tears of the Kingdom. That was the last game played on the Switch, was Pokemon Scarlet, from fucking November last year. He doesn't play that Switch. And I don't think fucking Kat plays it either. She's too busy fucking playing Skyrim for the 1500th fucking time. So neither of them really play Switch games hardly at all. And he's over here trying to pretend that he's all of a sudden a Nintendo fan? Bullshit.
Of the first-party Nintendo titles like Mario, Metroid, Kirby, Zelda, Donkey Kong.
And Metroid, you waited months after Metroid was first released to fucking play it, so you're not a fan.
Country, I guess you could say. Pokemon, right? And that's just a few off the top of my head. I think these are outstanding games. I really feel that.
Bullshit.
Okay?
After you spend hours shitting on it.
And I think that there's already
years shitting on them.
Big established gamers on YouTube who play Nintendo games. And most people who are seeking this out are going to find that before me. You know what I'm saying? Now, also, what you got to understand is this game leaked a week or two ago. So a lot of people who were interested in the game already kind of saw it or played it themselves already for free. Because the game leaked. Nintendo really effed that up. They really did. I don't know what they were thinking there. And they really screwed the pooch.
It's not like they purposely leaked it. I'm pretty sure one of the beta testers leaked it. So that was kind of beyond their control there, Phil. I'm saying in less than a month, he is gonna rage quit this game. Not rage quit, but he's gonna quit this game claiming he's not getting enough support or enough views to keep playing it. He's gonna view count drop this game. he's gonna complain, oh, I'm not getting enough money to keep playing it, no one's showing up, so I'm just gonna stop playing it, and we're gonna play fucking more Oblivion or some other dumbass game that no one ever wants. Almost guaranteed. There's no way he's gonna actually finish this game. Not a chance. And it's like, well, what other games are out there right now? Like, he's probably gonna play this until Street Fighter 6 comes out, and then he's gonna focus 100% on Street Fighter 6 for about a month or two, and then he's gonna start getting salty that people keep beating him, and then he'll drop that too, and who knows what the fuck he'll do after that. Probably replay another game he already fucking played before.
You know, am I shocked that this game, at least within the first 12 to 15
you
16 hours
indoctrinated your audience into hating Nintendo games because you hate Nintendo games, and for years you hated Nintendo games, so this is entirely your own fault because you cultivated and basically brainwashed them into not liking these games, and then you complain that they don't show up to watch these games.
But really what's going to happen is we need to judge long-term how it's going to do, and a lot of this is going to be based on stream performance, okay?
See?
Can I be honest?
He's not going to play...
We've had a very generous individual.
He does not want to play this game, and he's looking for any and every excuse to drop it. Which is fine. Honestly, it's like, I would rather, like, him just come out and it's like, hey, I don't really want to play this game, and just not play it. At least he's being honest about that. But he's doing this, like, pussyfoot, stepping around the issue and be like, well, I want to play it, but it's going to depend on stream performance and viewers and money and all these things, and it doesn't really feel like a Zelda game. All these things, like, just fucking say you don't want to play it, and at least, like, people would at least understand that more than you making a million excuses for trying to drop the game. You know, at least if you, like, as honest as you claim you are, because you're fucking not honest at all. But if he actually claimed he was honest, or if he actually was as honest as he claims, I mean, then just say you don't want to fucking play the game. And that would be it. Play whatever the fuck you want. Honestly, he should just fucking play WWE Champions on stream. At least that way he can write it off his taxes and everything. All the money he spends on it.
Who's been coming to stream and basically supporting the streams in crazy.
I'm not even that huge of a, like, Nintendo fan either. This is coming across that, like, I'm a massive Nintendo fan, and the only games I play are Nintendo games, and I only ever have a Switch. Honestly, I have more PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5 games than I do Nintendo games, because I like JRPGs and RPGs, and the best selection for those are on PS4. Well, hopefully PS5 soon too, but I mean, yeah, there are some decent ones on Switch too, but I'm not a massive Nintendo fan. It's just, I guess I'm, like, over here defending a decent game against this fucking clown, and the bullshit excuses he's constantly coming up, looking for any and every excuse he can possibly find to drop a game he clearly doesn't want to fucking play in the first place. So why bother fucking playing it? What is this charade? Like, who are you trying to prove to that you can play this game? Like, I don't get it. Like, I thought you made your own fucking schedule. Or is he worried that his fans would be like, you gotta play this game, Phil? Like, well, then if that's the case, then who runs this game? Who runs your channel? You or your fans, you know?
Easy way. Like, over the top levels of support. All right? 4 straight streams, we hit all of our goals. That's insane, right?
Yeah, I'm getting to that.
But that's not going to last
different
forever.
video.
In fact, I don't even think that they're here today, you know? So, when that's not happening, right? Are people going to show up and support the Zelda streams? Or is it going to be like what seems to happen with every single Nintendo game I play? People seem gung-ho for me to play it, and then once I start playing it, oh, this is boring. Oh, I wish you played something else. Oh, it's just another Nintendo game. I really feel like my viewers.
It's almost like the problem is not the game you play. The problem is you. The problem is your gameplay is boring as shit no matter what game you fucking play. And your viewership is dropping regardless of what actual game you're playing. Because I've seen the views you've been getting on your YouTube. They are still dropping steadily regardless of the game you've been playing. So, it's not the game's fault. That's just a performance issue on your fault. And because your gameplay is boring as fuck, no matter what game it is.
Against Nintendo. I don't know why, because I'm the opposite. I like first-party Nintendo
Such
games.
bullshit.
Am I critical of Nintendo and their bad business choices? Yes, I am. And I absolutely feel that there is a rabid fanboy group of people who literally blindly defend Nintendo no matter what they do. And I think that's stupid and bad for the gaming community. You should not reward bad behavior, but that's
I
what they
think
always
you're
do.
bad
Whenever
for the
Nintendo does
gaming
something
community,
stupid,
Phil.
They reward it as if it's a good choice, okay? And I think that's really dumb. But
It's more like they're gonna buy a game they like no matter what.
I like
would
Nintendo,
say.
and so I'm playing the games, and I thought yesterday was a really great day of Zelda streaming. I would hope that if people got that impression, they'll come back tonight, okay? But it seems like whenever I play Nintendo, there's just this really like negative stigma. People are like, I don't like Nintendo. Nintendo are kiddie games. And
Because you cultivated your audience to feel that way.
I guess what really will be the test here is tonight on the late stream, right? We're going to play it again, and will people show up? Will people support? Will people engage? Or is this going to be a game that after a couple streams already is kind of dead? I'm very curious about that, honestly, because I can tell you right now, Elden Ring still going strong. Star Wars Jedi Survivor, despite the fact the game is unpolished and messy, people still show up and have been very supportive of those streams as well. So, what's going to happen with Zelda?
Group.
That's a good question. And especially, I've been told, get this, Zelda is going to be an 80-hour playthrough. And if you actually take a look at the last Zelda playthrough, Breath of the Wild, it was 194 parts long. And back then, I was basically doing playthroughs that were half an hour parts 6 years ago. So if you do the math roughly, okay, that means, yeah, my playthrough clocked in around like 85 hours. That's accurate.
That is not a good reference to measure how long a game takes to complete, because a game that a normal person would beat in 40 hours, he would take like 70 to 80 hours to beat that game, because he stretches out any gameplay twice as long as it normally should be, because he is constantly stopping, talking with his chat, supposedly reading super chats, yelling at his chat, going off on wild tangents while his character just stays still. Like, he can't talk and play the game at the same time. So there's a lot of like idling while he's going off on some random tangent or going off in the weeds or whatever. Like, you're not one to be a good judge of how long a game takes to complete, Phil, because you constantly stretch out games to be way longer than they should actually take to beat, and you're just incredibly slow at actually beating any game.
Now, keep in mind, I did a lot of the side content. I was doing all the dragons I was chasing. I was trying to explore all the optional content and dungeons and things in the environment. It wasn't just me doing the main plot or anything like that, right? It was definitely me focusing in on all the content that the game had to offer. Okay? But I guess the question is, what will happen with Zelda moving forward? Will people want more of it? Will people want as more daytime streams? Will people support the streams? Or is it going to be, well, we saw the beginning, and now it's boring, so, you know, now we just complain constantly, Phil should be playing another game. I hope not. So far, I've really enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to more tonight. I'm actually legitimately looking forward to it, and I didn't know if I would. I was skeptical at first about Zelda. I was thinking maybe it wasn't going to be as good of a game because of what I had seen previously, but I'm enjoying the gameplay elements. Now we've hit the open world, and the open world is always really kind of addicting and fun, right? So I hope you guys will join me tonight, 6:45 p.m. Pacific time, and I hope you'll continue to join me this week, the main stream, and go from there. But so I hope that you guys will. Jade, what's going on? He says my allergies are bugging me.
All right, enough about fucking Jade. That's it. I think that's the end of this video, because I think I'm done covering his reactions to the new Zelda game. We basically went over all his bullshit fucking hot takes that he's done, and every excuse in the book he could throw at this game he has. So that's it for now. I got a few more videos I wanna make pretty soon. So look forward to those, I guess. And I'll see you next time. See ya.